Hello, hello, testing, testing. Islander, if you see me, let me know if I sound all right. I'm gonna just share my window, entire screen. Screen. Okay. Okay, just getting started up here. Hello, welcome to the chat, guys. Varchus, Viconia, Rybon, hi. Hey, guys. So yeah, we'll just see if people just kind of trickle in. We just started. I'm still doing a little bit of prep stuff. References and things like that, getting that in order. Trying to figure out where everything is going to go on my screen because I'm kind of running out of real estate right now. I hope you guys can hear me okay. Let me know if that sounds all right. I'm kind of a quiet talker. So I have my mic like right up next to my face. So just let me know if you can hear me okay. And we'll get started on some sculpting. I think actually what I might do in the beginning of the stream is I might do some drawing because I really want to get the proportions of the Purussaurus down first. And the thing that's weird about this guy is that I'm going to show you my references really quick. I've got quite a few. There's probably going to get more added. This is where all the Puru stuff is. So Purussaurus, it's pretty fragmentary. Not the worst thing I've ever seen. Looks like we have some of the rest of the skeleton, but it's mostly just skull bits. So I'm, the research that I've done, I'm kind of wondering how long this guy would have been. So I'm basing it off of some of these images here, but I think there is a bit of flexibility in proportions and stuff. I'll do more research as we keep going with the reconstruction, but I think I might do just a bit of sketching just to get some proportions down, and then I'll take that into ZBrush and start blocking in. I do want to get to sculpting today and at least get a block in. Purussaurus is just a brick with a crocodile attached. Yeah, his head is pretty beefy. You can see here. It's got a really cool profile. I like the blunt snout it has. I'm kind of wondering about this. Looks like it's got a big. This is where it's like nasal fenestra, I suppose would be. Um, it's really big. It looks like it's like dished out there. I think some of the research I was looking at says that that was for like an adaptation for crushing, so that way the skull could handle a lot of pressure. So that's going to be pretty interesting. I've never seen a croc with a structure like that. So that's going to be, yeah, that's kind of weird to restore. But okay. So those are my references. I'll just go through this a little bit, so you guys can see like kind of how I do all of this stuff. First and foremost, there's for the Puru, as many references as I possibly can get. Skulls, images of the bones, diagrams from papers. That's what I have here. Anatomy stuff. I have more anatomy stuff that I need to put to. I need to put on the sheet. Is it bigger than Dino? I'm not sure. I'd have to. I did see some comparisons of it, but I'm not sure. I'd have to double check. So yeah, anatomy, and then of course we have all of this stuff that's like living crocodiles. Because the cool thing about like crocs and other relatives is that they have a pretty well established body plan. So modern crocodiles are going to be a pretty good reference for it. Actually, the Peru is, according to like the like classification, is more closely related to caimans, and I don't have any caiman refs on here. I need to get some. These are all crocodile stuff, crocodile alligator stuff. So I definitely need to add that in here. I don't want to bore you guys with like just me searching for images on the internet today. But I'll get some of that in there later. A lot of this other stuff on the ref sheet is just like details that we're probably not going to get to today because it's just going to be mostly block in, but it's like cool stuff like the teeth, like little damage marks on the teeth, scales, textures, things like that. So they're really cool. This is really nice. So that's the type we're going to get going on once we have everything established and we can get into the detailing stuff. Because that's really it's one of my favorite parts, is like just adding like all of these little imperfections and surface variations and stuff like that, getting into the meat of the. Yeah, let me take this off the screen and see if I can get it to fit here without blocking chat. There we go. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to probably start with some sketching, just because it's not like super solidified in my mind, the proportions of the body and stuff. So I'm going to copy some of these images over into Clip Studio. Let's see. YouTube is laggy. Sorry about that. Sarah Dasher, sorry I just joined. Are you a modeler, animator, or something else? Really appreciate the stream. Thanks. So I am I'm kind of, I started out as an illustrator. Yeah, I should probably introduce myself a little bit more. Just talk about my background a bit. So I started out as an illustrator. That's actually what I went to art school for. And then gradually, I mean, I've always been interested in sculpture, but when I was in art school, I had a class. It was called illustration media, and basically in that class, we um, we kind of just experimented with a ton of different methods of creating illustrations. There is such a thing as 3D illustration. Not many people do it, but but they do. So that was part of the class. And so we actually had to do a sculpt. Um, and I wonder if I can show you guys. Um, I did do a sculpture in that class, and that's really the class that kind of hooked me on sculpting. I did a It was a sculpt of a raptor, um, kind of a made up raptor. It wasn't anything like super rigorous or anything. Um, I did a sculpt of a raptor back then. You guys can see here, I think. See if I can get closer. So this is my first sculpt, and it was done in Sculpey. Um, it's pretty fun. I enjoyed it a lot. I was watching a lot of like traditional sculptors, like doing maquettes for movies and stuff like that. Jurassic Park. What else was there? There was like a Gnomon workshop. There was which is like a resource for artists. There were a lot of tutorials that I was following. Um, but yeah, this is kind of where it all started, especially the sculpting part. And later on, this was maybe like my sophomore year in college, and then once I started moving on during my senior year, I really wanted to do something kind of big for my grad show. Um, so I actually started to learn how to sculpt in ZBrush, and it was kind of a dumb idea because I I waited until like the very last minute, like maybe there's just a few weeks before the end of my grad year to start learning ZBrush because I wanted to 3D print a sculpt that I was working on. So yeah, it was kind of a mad rush. So I learned ZBrush in like, I don't know. I had to learn it just ahead of time because I had to order my model and then it had to have time to get to the show. So it was like maybe like a period of 2 weeks where I had to learn ZBrush and then I had to export that model and then I have wait maybe like a week for it to get there and then prep my show. So it was crazy. Um, and it was like a made up sort of dinosaur model, like a creature. Um, so yeah, so I kind of have a range of stuff. Like I know how to draw, I know how to paint, I know how to sculpt and texture. So I kind of just do all of that. Some people, especially I think like there's seems to be, from my perspective at least, like a couple of different mindsets in the industry, like as far as video games and film and stuff. Um, Whereas like there's some people that just want to specialize and like they get really good at one thing, like they get really good at animation or they get really good at texturing. And then I think you see this more in like the indie space and games, I think, um, where you're working in smaller teams and you kind of have to wear multiple hats. And that's where I like to be. Like I don't really want to be restricted to one skill set. I personally like to be able to take something from beginning to end. I don't really want to have to, like, if I could only draw and just like I had to stop when my drawing was done, I think I would go kind of crazy. I don't I don't think I would like that very much. Sorry guys, I'm getting distracted. I'm gonna do my best to try and talk and work at the same time, but uh, I'm not super used to this right now. I'm gonna pull over another one. Let me see what is going on in chat. A jack of all trades in this field. I wouldn't say a jack of all trades. A jack of a few. Uh, the stuff that I'm interested in, at least. I'm pretty much. I'm I, I'm really familiar with painting and sculpting at this point. I do really like texturing. Um, I'm kind of dabbling in animation, but I don't know if I'll ever. That's a My schedule doesn't really allow me to practice that too much. So I don't know if I'm gonna ever be super good at animation, but it would be cool to like play around with that. Maybe do like simple walk cycles and stuff like that, um, just to see how it goes. But I haven't gotten around to it yet. I'm gonna turn this down. And so it looks like these are the same. It's from the same diagram, basically. I think I got this from the same paper. I do kind of I like the proportions on this one. I think they're the best that I've seen from the papers that I've gathered. So we can start here. If there's any changes that I need to implement later, those can be added. The thing about this though is that it's got like this weird arch in its back. I don't know why it's posed this way. It's kind of an awkward pose. So I'm gonna make it just a little bit more neutral, and we'll take that into ZBrush. I'm gonna do my. So I'm literally gonna trace. Um, you know, the bones are here. There's no real reason to make stuff up. So I'm just gonna go for it here. And like readjust as I go, especially in the body. Let me get my refs up here. Do your best streaming is something a person gets used to. Yeah. Yeah, multitasking is something you definitely need to like get used to over time. Um, I, I hope I'll kind of settle into it. Um, if I get kind of quiet, I do tend to get super quiet when I'm like concentrating on stuff. So I apologize if it gets super quiet in here. Um, but yeah, over time, I hope I'll be able to kind of manage both the chat and keeping the model going, so you guys have something cool to watch. So right here, what's something really cool. I don't know if I have my refs for the jaw muscles, but these guys are going to have super massive, like they're going to have big jaw muscles right here that are attaching to the back of the jaw. And then they actually wrap up. So this muscle wraps around the jaw and comes up and attaches somewhere in here. And then there's other muscles that'll attach to these surfaces and then pull down so they're like kind of like a crisscross, like one muscle goes around and up and then the other one comes down. So that's the stuff that you're gonna like when you see crocodiles open their mouth, or when you see really nice, even like Komodo dragons, stuff like that, or really nice sculpts of dinosaurs with their mouth open, and you see that like kind of meaty area on the sides of their mouth. That's what you're seeing is these big muscles. Um, that's one thing that those like older uh, like dinosaur reconstructions, like a lot of times I'll see people, um, they don't actually fill out the jaw muscles. They'll treat them like membranes. You see it in toys a lot. So it's just like this weird like skinny like membrane on the side of the mouth. Um, that's really not how it should work. So yeah, so this is where I'm going to deviate from the. I really just want the skull because that's like the most reliable piece of um, reference that we have here. But the rest of the body, I'm adding more flesh to it, right? Like I'm not just following the. I'm using the proportions. I'm not necessarily following the exact outline of the skeletal. Let me add a ruler here. Special parallel line. So I'm adding some guidelines for myself, just so that way I can define like limits. So I know like the neck ends here, the torso ends here. Oh, I should stop holding shift because I don't need to. That's where the back of the leg is going to be. And then we have the tip of the tail should end someplace right there. And then I'll disable the ruler. Let's see. Dasher, do you think Blender is okay to start out learning to sculpt? Yeah, Blender is super. Blender really does it all, I think. I personally haven't spent a lot of time sculpting in Blender. I definitely need to get around to doing that because I want to try it too. I want to see how it goes. But you definitely like you don't need to use ZBrush if that's not like ZBrush is ZBrush is really cool. I do love it a lot. Um, but I don't know if it's the most affordable thing, especially now because they switched over to their what's it called, like the subscription thing. So I mean, it's technically like cheaper. So, because when I started ZBrush, I started when it was like 4R4 in 2012, and you could just buy a license. And I think it costs like it was like $800 or something like that for a license, but you got the whole thing. Like you got all of the updates. So I had my license for like, yeah, I bought it in 2012, 2013, and I had that license for a while until they switched to the subscription thing, which was honestly kind of annoying. A lot of programs are doing that, including like Adobe and stuff like that, which is why I'm using Clip Studio Paint. But yeah, a Blender should be good. You should be able to do most of the stuff that ZBrush can. Plus, like you can do all kinds of other stuff that ZBrush can't do. Like you can sculpt your model. You can totally retopologize it in there. You can render it immediately. You can rig it. You can do all that stuff, which is definitely an advantage that ZBrush can't really do. I mean, it can do it, but like in its own like weird way, and it's not really, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth at this point when you have tools like Blender that can do it like more efficiently. I don't really know if it's worth learning that. Babu Doge. Just pretend like you're talking to yourself. Makes it a lot easier. Yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, like this isn't like it's not too different from like I've been to schools and stuff, and I've done like demos and a bit of lecturing on just design and stuff like that, creature design mostly. So it's not super out of the realm. It's just like usually I go to like a school and it's maybe like an hour of talking. And I have like a presentation, right? Like it's not just like free form. I have something that's already like pre-prepared to show. Whereas this is like kind of on the fly decision making stuff. So okay, so going into the sketch, you see me working on the arm, and I'm just trying to add. I'm trying to estimate the bulk because I do like one of the cool things about the Puru is that like I kind of want to play up. I want him to feel very strong, right? Because like if you look at his skull, it's very bulky, very beefy. I mean, and then the evidence also shows that these guys had a really strong bite. Um, but then it would be weird, right? If you had this big bulky skull and then the body was just kind of like slim and kind of slender, which is kind of what's going on with this here. So I think I want to I kind of like the silhouette of this here, where it's like you can tell that it's a bit beefier. This one here too. So I want to try and play that up a little bit, make him pretty strong. I'm trying to see if I have another reference of like a bigger crocodile. But I mean, their arms and stuff aren't. This one's kind of slender, but their arms and stuff have a good amount of muscle to them. So I want to make sure I'm including that. You can see here I have some diagrams of the muscles for the arms and the legs that I'm looking at while I'm drawing here. Of your room, by the oh, thank you, thanks. Yeah, I didn't remodel it, but I like moved it around and organized it a lot better. Because yeah, I work from home, so I'm in this room like majority of the day, right? So I don't know. I think it's really important, at least for me. Like I don't want to come into a room that's just like nothing but white walls, and I want to try to be inspired by the stuff that's around me and make my room look nice, you know. So I have everything that I personally enjoy, like all my action figures. I have artwork from like stuff that either friends that have given me artwork. Some of my friends' artwork is up here on the walls, and then just like cool stuff that I like Godzilla behind me. I really love Godzilla. Um, what else? I have some Pacific Rim posters in front of me here on the side. On this wall, I have more Godzilla stuff and some Jurassic Park posters. And then, of course, all my action figures. I really enjoy collecting action figures, especially if they're like really nicely sculpted, and if they have really nice articulation. Um, I go crazy for that kind of stuff. Where does my eye go, Dasher? What do you? Who asked that? Where does the eye go? Oh, yeah. So the weird thing about the croc, right, is that from the profile you don't really see the eye. Well, I mean, you would see the eye, but like from the like if you look at the skull, so the eye socket's here, but on the side view, it's got this little like you don't really see the socket itself. It's got this ridge. So let me see. It's not like these guys, right? Where you can see the eye socket from the side view. I think that these would probably have a much more upward facing eye. You could probably still see it on the side view once like it's when the eyeball's in there, of course, because this kind of pops up above. But I'm just being like super avoidant and not putting it in there right now. It would probably look something like this. Just like a little bump with the eye in there. I'd have to double check that though. Just to make sure that I'm not like overly like exaggerating how high the eye pops up above the head. So I don't want to add features that wouldn't really be there. And this is I don't know how far I'm going to go with this sketch. What time is it? 7:28. We've only been here for like 30 minutes. So I'll work on the sketch for a little bit more. But I don't think I'm going to go for like a super refined sketch because I want to get into ZBrush and start working in there. What's the best way to deal with this? It's mainly like the function of this sketch is mainly just to get the proportions down and then have like a more neutral pose that I can work from in ZBrush. That way I'm not building because I don't want to build into the model this like weird humpback thing. I want it to be nice and neutral. Like normally, like I guess if I were doing a concept of the Peru for like let's say I wasn't modeling it. Let's say I was like just doing the concept and I was passing it off to somebody else. I would do this in a ton more detail. I would do side view. I'd lay out all of the scoots and stuff on the back. I do a front view, top view, just so that way they know what the width and stuff like that of the animal and stuff. I do all of that, but since I'm the one doing it, all of it, it's kind of a little redundant if I do all 3 views and just make it super detailed because I'm just going to go in and detail it anyway. So I make the base of the tail much thicker. I'll give myself a ground line too. So I want to. His legs are going to be hanging down a little bit, which is kind of silly, but I want to make sure that there's some sort of if the tail were resting, or maybe it might be better if I just leave the tail like super straight. If we want it to keep it neutral, maybe a slight curve. Something like that. Just like a little bit of a gesture to it, but not super bent. Don't they have the nose more like inside? Maracui. The nose more like inside. They do have like an internal nares, like well, pretty much all vertebrates do. I'm pretty sure, but so you have the nostrils up here, but then um, there's like an opening. Like if you were to imagine like an X-ray, you'd have the airway somewhere in here. There's an opening that goes all the way back here. And I think in crocodiles and alligators, it's actually behind this sort of flap in the back of their throat. I think I have a reference of it. See this flap here? When they close their mouth, that bottom piece kind of overlaps this and it makes their back of their mouth like watertight. But behind here is where that internal nares is. So their airway comes down back there, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to describe. You'll see me include that. I don't know if I'm going to include that in the sculpt if we require that. But I'll make the sculpt as detailed as possible, and if we include that, I'll try to explain it more. Okay, so you can see how that's turning out, right? I think that's. I might work up this sketch just a tiny bit more. Like when I start getting into when we start including the like the little scoots and stuff on the back, like these things, or the osteoderms, if you want to use proper terminology. I might actually come back to the sketch and map those out. That way I'm not like guessing on the mesh. But for the purposes of this, like just getting started on the 3D mesh, this may be enough. I think I'm making the hands way too big though. Let me fix that. So if you look at if you compare, not that, I mean, honestly, I don't even know if we actually have preserved hands for Puru. But if we're following this skeletal, my hands are too big. They did look too big in proportion to the arm anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. And of course, like things in 3D are so flexible. Like um, even if down the line I wanted to change the hands back, or you know, you can just change that kind of on the fly. So we still have room to make those adjustments if we ended up wanting to modify the proportions of the Peru a lot more. So I'm just giving it a once over now. Just taking a look and seeing if I need any other things detailed out or like indicated for myself before I get into ZBrush. What pen do I use? It's just an Intuos. What the heck is it? It's like the newer Intuos tablet. It's a medium size tablet. I have a Cintiq too. That's off to my right here, but I don't really use it. Sorry, I'm just reading a message from Islander right now. Some chill music in the background. I can pop in some music if y'all would like. I don't have like a playlist or anything prepared. I probably should have done that. Just so it's not like super silent. Or you can listen to my Spotify playlist, my chill playlist. I'm not sure if it's to y'all's taste though. But what I was saying about the yeah, it's an Intuos medium tablet. I use it because so I do have a Cintiq, which I can it's on an arm and I can move it and like put it down in front of me, which is it's really nice. But I found that like the angle of the Cintiq and when I'm looking down, it really messes up my neck. Like I've had a lot of neck and back issues over the last couple of years, I think. I actually had to, I was in physical therapy trying to, help that situation out earlier this year. So it just made me pay attention a lot more to the way I'm positioning myself when I'm working, because a lot of hours like with my head down like this, looking at the screen, drawing, it just puts a lot of tension on the back of my neck, and it's much better if I can just sit and then look straight at my monitor. My neck is in a much better position. Heck yeah. Sketch looks pretty cool, by the way. Thank you. Let's see. I'm going to see if we can launch Spotify. Put some music on. Put it pretty low. This is kind of my quote unquote chill playlist. It's a lot of like I'm a big fan of hip hop, R&B, and soul. So that's what a lot of what I have here. So I'm sorry if you I don't actually know if I can hear that. Let's stop that. Maybe it's not coming through my headphones. My headphones aren't on. That would be good, right? There we go. Let me know if that's too loud. I'm actually going to start that over because I do like this song. Put it on shuffle. Okay. Can't hear it. Okay. The other thing is I'm not sure because I'm sharing my screen, but I'm not sure if it's sharing the audio or of like the computer audio. So if that's something we want in the future, then I'm maybe there's like a setting that I need to figure out to do that. Yeah. So I'd encourage you if you guys want to put some music on and just chill out and watch me draw and sculpt. Um, you can probably figure that out later. Yeah, we'll probably figure that out later. Okay. I think this should be okay for me. Turn this off. I'm just going to crop it. Okay. And then we are going to save this so we can use it again later. I'm just going to save a JPEG out. Then we'll hop into ZBrush. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to figure out how I actually want to start this. Texture, import, Puru. So we got our image here. I probably want to, I got to save out one of these skull references really quick. Export. Okay. Okay, we'll start with the skull because that's like our that's what we have the most evidence for, best reference for, um, and it's gonna be like the anchor and the focal point for everything else. So we'll just start with that, and then we'll add the body in. I'm trying. Let's see what I want to do. There's so many ways that you can go about this stuff. Um, Here, I'm gonna delete the subdivs, dynamesh it. I'm just gonna carve it out of this block, basically. Because I don't really want to mess with Z-spheres and stuff at the moment. So you can see I got the top figured out. I'm going to treat these as two separate meshes for right now. So I'm going to do the top of the skull first. And then I'll do the jaw. I'll probably keep those separate for a while because I want to make sure that I'm getting the, what's important about a croc mouth is that the mouth closes and that the teeth interlock when the jaw is closed. So I don't want, I want to be able to check that easily. And if it's all one mesh, especially in the beginning, I'm not really gonna have a good time with that. I just want to keep things as easy as possible. So we got our block there. And then I'm gonna, let's see. I'm just gonna duplicate that. Actually, let me initialize this really quick. Okay. It's kind of weird because he's got a big overbite, which is pretty interesting. Then I'm going to carve this jaw so it's got the right width to the head. Something like that. I can bring in my side view again. Take this off. Islander. Actually, never seen the process of a model being made. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Um, it's definitely so. I will say that I never really do the same thing twice. As far as like process, um, like this is definitely not the way that I did the Tyrannosaurus, right? Because the Tyrannosaurus, we had like a basic skeleton, and then I did all the muscles and stuff on top of that. So that's a way to build it out. This way is kind of it's more like primitive based. And what I mean by primitives is just like basic shapes, right? Um, more focused on just proportion because there's I mean I could do like a skeleton, like a basic skeleton for this guy too, and then build them out in the same way. But another aspect of it is just like there's so many different ways to build, build out a mesh in ZBrush. And I'm kind of I'm always looking for different ways to approach things. And I get kind of bored of the same workflow um, if I do it too much. So trying to keep things like a little bit fresh for myself is a factor. So I tend to approach things different ways all the time. Sometimes I'll go into Blender and I'll do a sketch, or if I have a nice skeletal, I'll go into Blender and I'll build out a base mesh, like a really nice like low poly base mesh from just a cube, and then I'll bring that into ZBrush and sculpt on top. That's another way. Sometimes I'll start with a sphere and then dynamesh it and just pull out everything that I need, and then worry about the retopology later. Sometimes I work on it all as one mesh. Sometimes it's broken up into pieces. Yeah, it's kind of depends on how I'm feeling, I suppose. The nice thing about, I guess, the advantage of working like this like very primitive way is that I get nice planes into the sculpture like right away, which those can be kind of hard to establish, especially if you start from a very like round form. Because what planes do in a sculpt is they provide structure. Um, they make something feel more like just grounded, more solidified. If something has too many like rounded, smooth shapes, it's going to start feeling very like stylized, maybe a little too artificial. So if you start from like a super round, like a sphere or something like that, or like a cylinder, you can definitely build those planes and stuff back in. Like I'm building additional planes on this with the trim dynamic. But sometimes it can be a little bit of a fight. Whereas if you start from very square geometric shapes, very basic shapes, it can be a little bit easier. I'm going to do another cube. The other thing that's nice about this is because you're starting from like a cube, you can get your proportions in. It's almost like a set of calipers. Like if I do, I don't want to delete that, duplicate it. Like if I start with this cube, I can stretch it out and make it exactly, like I can kind of use it like a measuring tool, make it exactly the length that I need it. And then once it's at the right size and angle, I can I'm just going to dynamesh it again and then carve it. It must feel great to see the dino you made in game. Marquis. Yeah, that's really one of that's like the coolest thing to see. I still haven't gotten over that. It's kind of a weird feeling. Um, it's like it's a similar feeling to how I get when like I've done a lot of sculpts for action figures, and like you're just seeing, you get used to seeing the sculpt on the screen. So when it actually you 3D print it, and then the final figure gets, you have that in hand. It's a super cool feeling. It's very similar to seeing the model actually in game too. Just seeing it move around, fully textured, all the lighting and the environment. Um, seeing seeing what the animators do with the model after you hand it off, it's really cool. So you see pretty quickly, I got that tail in there. There's a little bit of a nasty. Let's get rid of that. Okay. And there, I want to add a plane on the side there, so I'm gonna see if I can carve it out. Something like that. And then I'll just refine it with. I'm trying to build in that. Like if you look at the tails, there's definitely like there's a distinct top plane, and then it merges into one like ridge that comes down to the end of the tail. So I want to get that in there pretty quickly. Marquis, I'm not sure if you answered it, but are you doing everything with the dino besides creating animations for it? Pretty much. Yeah, I'm taking it as far as I can. So I'm doing the concept, kind of doing the concept and the model at the same time. And then the textures, I may do the retopology just so you can. I'm not sure if I guess we can decide if that's something you guys want to see. Like if you want to see like literally the whole process, we can do retopology on stream. I'm not sure like how exciting that would be for y'all, but we can definitely do it. Yeah, and then I'm handing that off for the animators to bring it to life because I'm not an animator. All I basically know how to do is like rig stuff and like pose it around for like renders and things like that. I basically treat my models like, digital action figures, and just pose them around and make them fight and run around and stuff for images. So you can see, like, you can get some pretty nice stuff pretty quick. Like these forms, like that's starting to work okay and flow into it to the torso pretty nicely. I'm going to add in another cube. One cool thing about this too is that you learn a lot about the creature too, right? Yeah. Um, that's definitely an aspect to it, is that there's so many different animals that I've reconstructed at this point. And some of them are animals that I had no idea about. Trying to think. Um, Majority of the dinos, I mean, I've been pretty familiar with. Um, I'm not just talking about the stuff I've done for Echoes, but there are some like more obscure dinosaurs that I haven't really done any research on, or families of them. Like one, the very first dinosaur that I like seriously reconstructed was a Megaraptor called Australopithecus. And before that, I never knew about Megaraptors. I didn't even know what a Megaraptor was. Like, um, they were a pretty new family of dinosaurs to me. Um, and they've honestly become like one of my favorite families of dinosaurs. Like Australopithecus, that I wonder if I can show you guys. I think I have it on ArtStation. Yeah, I have it here. This guy. I did a full body of him too. I just haven't rendered it out. This was my first like really serious uh paleo reconstruction. Like really looking at the bones, like, getting all the data, being really meticulous about how it's all put together. But this really, like, learning all about megaraptors and Australopithecus specifically. Like to this day, I think Australopithecus probably still my favorite um, theropod. Um, I also did like a reconstruction of the front limb, and I just think they're really cool. It's just that huge claw and how they're kind of like, I think they're pretty closely related to like Carcharodontosaurids, I think, but they're smaller and like more like they look like they're just very lightly built, and they remind me of like sports cars. Like I would say they're like this, like the sports car of theropods. Just very streamlined, very they just look fast. They look sleek, and that claw makes them look very threatening. I really like the way they look. But I learned a lot about them, and I don't think I would have ever uh, been as interested if I hadn't like reconstructed one. And that happens a lot with some of the other guys that I've worked on. And there's like little like very nuanced things that you learn about them, like the way certain bones attach or the way certain muscles attach. Um, I was working on in that same. I think I hit the page, but there was a Pachycephalosaurus skeleton that I worked on, and there was lots of information about like the hips that I didn't realize, just like very weird like anatomical um, details that I never knew about. Like they have these weird like tail ribs. I guess is the it's actually like a I guess it's like a transverse process, but they actually arc down a little bit. You can see them right there. And I never knew they had those. Especially the way that the hips are constructed, how they have these like very crazy like arches that attach to the back, and then how the this this would be their pubis right here is flared out instead of like in theropods it meets at at the base in front. Um, so it's really strange. So you get to learn like crazy stuff like that. So okay. So you see there, okay, I'm gonna undo for a second. So right here, I've lost those planes. See how it's getting kind of mushy? So I'm gonna have to I want to reestablish that really quick. Make sure just to clean it up. This is I'm just wondering if I should like pull this up so that way it meets the jaw. I think I'm gonna keep the jaw open. That way it's easier to sculpt. Let me make sure I'm pivoting from the right spot. Is that the right spot? Let me pull in the skull. Actually, I don't need to do that because it's already here. Or it should have been. We'll do it again. Texture. Okay. So there's the back of the skull. The jaw should pivot from here. We'll keep the mouth pretty wide. They should be able to open their mouths pretty far anyway. And then it's just going to make it easier for me to sculpt inside there. And we'll close it up to double check the teeth alignment and stuff later. This needs to get wider. So, okay, so the jaw is actually two bones. And I'm wondering, I'm going to see if I can find an image of just the lower jaw by itself later. but it should follow the outline of the upper, the skull, right? Um, but it would be very wide. This is a lot wider. Like if you compare this to other crocodiles, like or other crocodilians, like I've reconstructed Sarcosuchus, and I actually I have a alligator and a crocodile skull on my um, shelf over there. But if you look at the bottom, like their jaw, this guy's jaw is much wider than any of the stuff I've worked on before. So it's kind of weird. Like it's making me feel like I'm doing something wrong. But like in instances like that, it's probably better just to trust the bones, um, instead of like what intuition would say is right, because that can kind of get you into some trouble. So we'll just go for this, and then of course, like for me, like if I'm ever unsure about anything, I'll just go and uh, sink some time into doing research and see if I can find any answers. Fortunately, like working on this sort of stuff for a while, I've gotten pretty used to doing my own research, and then I also have lots of really good friends who are experts in paleontology, different fields in paleontology and stuff like that, that usually have some clues. Show the skull, please. This is the skull. You mean the diagram? So we're going to work on, so I'm wondering, I should probably get the limbs in, because I know I'm going to be avoiding the limbs. I don't want to like leave stuff hanging out there. Like, should probably get a nice holistic view of the whole model together before I start digging into certain areas. So I'll try to be a good sculptor and do that instead of avoiding stuff that, because like the limbs I tend to like procrastinate on, just because they're much more complicated than any other structure on the sculpt. So I won't do that. I'll actually be proactive. For these, I am going to use these spheres because that's just for me right now. It makes more sense to do it that way. And I'm only going to do, so lately I've been only doing like, I've been keeping the limbs on my models separate. And then I'm only doing one side, because when it's symmetrical, and you start like, I try to start doing details on it. When I'm sculpting, the opposite side will get in the way of like certain views of the inside of the model. Like if I want to get onto if I want to detail the interior of the arm, and I try to get like a view like this, then the other arm is going to be in the way. And I really don't like fussing around with the model, trying to get like a certain view. So I've just been doing one side, and then I'll just mirror it over when it's ready, when it's done. Let me get this aligned back here. I think I'm gonna save a view so that way I don't have to keep resetting this every time. And my tail got short. I think something got misaligned along the way. Then I'll move the arm back. There we go. Okay. Then we come in, do the hand. So we have five digits for the hand. I have to scoot these around so I have enough room. I'm actually going to bring in that which diagram do I want? The one with the full skeleton, probably. Actually, I'll bring pure ref up here because I can make it overlay the whole screen. That way I don't have to export and then import. They're always on top. I just want to make sure I'm like getting the length of the digits close. Usually in crocodilians, the first 3 digits are going to be the longest ones. It'll go kind of short, longest, a little bit shorter, and then these two are the shortest ones. And these two outside ones also don't have any claws on them. They're just like little stubs. So I'm going to see, I don't know if I want this in Dynamesh. I think that I'm going to make it just pretty low poly. That way it's easier to manipulate later. So we'll do that. Adaptive. Insert. And then hide the Z-sphere. Okay. So we got one sort of weird Muppet arm on there. Oh, the skull I have on the shelf. Yeah, give me 1 second. So this is I think it's a alligator skull. Let's see if you can see that. And the I got it from there's like a reptile show or something like that a couple of years ago. But this is the lower jaw. You can see it's kind of bowed out, but it's much more like narrow and triangular. If I can show you that. And it's actually two bones. It was glued together, but I separated them because I wanted to see the I wanted to see how they attach better. One cool thing that I have too is this it's like an écorché model of a crocodile. You can see that I'm like not very good at getting things in frame. But it's a cool anatomical model of a croc from Anatomy Tools, I think. I was able to get a fairly cheapish one on eBay, which is really nice. It has lots of really good muscle details on it. I wish I had more skull references because they're super useful. The only thing is, well, I haven't really prioritized it, right? There's a lot of places that sell skulls or skull replicas. Some of them can get kind of expensive though. And I haven't really started to like collect those or anything yet. It'd be really nice to get like a couple different types of reptiles, maybe some birds, like an eagle skull and maybe like a emu or ostrich skull or something like that. Would be really helpful. Insert. Let me get the hind limb in here. Sorry if you hear my dogs scurrying around in the background. They're getting up right now, and they sometimes have the zoomies in the morning, and they'll freak out and like run up and down the hallway. So sorry if you hear a big stampede of dogs. How long do you usually take to make a dino model? At this point, like if I was doing everything like from scratch, like no base meshes or anything like this, if I had, 40 hours a week to work on it, it would probably take me like 2 weeks. That's from like beginning to like from sculpt to and retopology and like textures, basically getting it all done and ready to get into the engine. It would be about two and a half weeks, depending on like how complex it is. The if it had like feathers, it'd take longer, just because feathers are bit tedious to work with, because you have to place all of the feather cards, or like at least groom them correctly. You can procedurally place them down and get the bulk of it out of the way, but you can't really get around like hand placing some of them, especially like if you're doing like a raptor and you have all those feathers on the wing. Um, that stuff is going to take a while to get in there and make sure it's on the right spot and nothing's overlapping. And yeah, I just finished doing a raptor for, well, not just finished, but I finished doing a raptor earlier in the year, for Kyoryu. And yeah, that took a while. Okay. How long have you been doing 3D modeling? I've been sculpting for 12 years. If I'm doing my math right. I learned how to use ZBrush in 2012, so that should be 12 years, right? I'm an artist, not a mathematician. So it's been a while. Display properties, that's not what I want to mess with. There we go. Have you done things for Beasts of Bermuda? No, I haven't worked on that game. Projects that you might have seen my stuff on. Not many game stuff actually. I've been mostly doing like work for museums and action figures. So a lot of my work is actually for Beasts of the Mesozoic. If you guys are familiar with those action figures. So that's actually 3D modeling and then 3D printing, articulation, prototyping. I don't really do any of the concept work for that project. This is not oriented right. And then also package art. I just finished a new package for them not too long ago. It was a Utah Raptor with like some sci-fi in like a sci-fi city with some riders on them for Cyberzoic. So we got the hind limb. I used to watch Hoki Roya's 3D artist channel 8 to 6 years ago. No, that'd be really cool to see. Is that channel still up? You also model for Kyoryu, yes. I did the T-Rexes for the first like teaser trailer and the Dimetrodon. And then they had a recent teaser trailer on like Gamescom, I think. And I did the raptors for that and the sauropods and the pterosaurs. I don't think you really see the pterosaurs in there, but they're very small. Okay. So we got all of the basic body parts here. So I think we can start digging into some of the more refined forms of the head and see if we can get a good block out. I mean, a good like semi-refined skull before the end of stream, maybe get some teeth in there. And then that will probably be all I'm able to do today. So I'm going to pull up references of the skull. By the way, do you have an art station? Yeah. So it's all like all of my stuff is just Raul Ramos art. So if you just search that, or I guess I can paste the link into the chat, right? Low poly chunker, yeah. We'll get some of that low polyness out of here right now. So oh, that's why it's not marking. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Samples, and we got to turn off projection. And now it works. Okay, cool. So I'm going to start kind of eyeballing these landmarks. I'm going to get more specific about them and overlay the diagram back onto the model in a second, but I just want to get some sort of indication of landmarks. I'm looking for like it's different for every dinosaur, like every creature I work on, but usually, you know, eye sockets and stuff are big landmarks. Anything that protrudes a little bit, I want to keep track of. So like definitely here, because this is the pivot point for the jaw. I want to make sure that's I keep track of that, and that's nice and defined. These processes up here where the muscles attach for the back of the neck, I want to make sure I keep track of those. this nasal opening. Because some of this stuff is going to prove like we're just working on the skull right now, but some of this stuff is actually going to show through onto the flesh reconstruction, right? Um, so if I take time and like get those well established now, then it's going to mean less work for me later. And I'm using this is one of my favorite brushes. Basically, I mean, a lot of people use it. It's just a default brush in ZBrush, but it's the clay buildup brush. Actually, when I first started using ZBrush, I was really afraid of this brush because it seemed really harsh to me. Like if you look at it, like it makes these like very harsh lines or like tracks onto the model. And especially in the beginning when I was sculpting, uh, learning to sculpt, I wanted it. I felt like I needed to keep everything like smooth all the time, which is not really. It doesn't really matter. Like worrying about surface like quality at this point in the model is kind of pointless because you're just gonna you're just gonna go back over it at some point anyway. So like being super concerned about how smooth the surface is or how rough it is not really going to be super productive. Um, but the reason why I like it is because it reminds me a lot of drawing, actually. Because when I draw, I like using ballpoint pen. And ballpoint pen, when you know, obviously you can't like shade the same way you would shade with like a pencil and get like super nice gradients just by like varying your pressure. You have to, with ballpoint pen, you have to hatch your values in. So you have like these very fine marks going across the form of the drawing that you're working on. And that's kind of what this reminds me of. Like you see all these little striations that are happening on the surface. They're like it's like wrapping around, and it really helps me see the form much more so than like if you see this, you can see how the form is wrapping around into the distance around the skull. If you had that very smooth, like you could see like the subtle shading, and obviously like you can see the little bits of like the little geometry in there showing the form. But if you had subdivided this and it's a lot smoother, you just these like little subtle shading areas aren't that useful to me at least not at this stage. Like I would rather see what the form is doing and then I'll smooth it out later. I feel like the hind legs could be wider since they have to support a lot of weight. Yeah, I mean, we can take a look at that. Like I said in the beginning, like this isn't all like set in stone or anything. Um, it's so easy to make changes at this stage. Like, I mean, you were talking about making the legs bigger. Like, all you really would have to do is come back here, select the leg, and then increase it. And then you could also like grab this and like begin to, you know, chunk it up a little bit more. It's super easy. So we can definitely look into that sort of thing as we move forward. Because yeah, I definitely want and of course I'm not the only one making decisions about how this looks, right? like this is my opinion, but the design needs to serve the function of the game. So this isn't just like me dictating like what it should look like. Um, it's more like, especially Islander and I will have more conversations about what exactly we want out of how it looks, how it feels, what features we want to exaggerate, which ones we don't want to exaggerate too much, all that stuff. But for me, at least, I think it would be. I think this guy would look cool if if we kind of lean into like just making him look really strong and beefy. Because it's just, I think the head lends itself towards that sort of body type. So you can see how that's starting to shape up, right? It's not looking like uh, it's not looking so low poly anymore. And you can see like, okay, so now I have the skull, like these landmarks are fairly blocked in. They're probably going to change in a little bit, but you can see now that I have that blocked in. I can see where my neck needs to be adjusted so that way it feels like it's attaching properly. So this would actually be here somewhere. Let's look at some actual crocs. Or not crocs, I think this is an alligator. But yeah, look at this area here. That's what I want to have happen in the back of the head. And I want to keep the planes established because those are actually going to become, eventually those are going to become hints at where those osteoderms are going to go, because the osteoderms form in tracks down the back. So these are, I'm going to try to keep. I've seen Purus shown like a skinny croc with a massive head. Yeah. That's kind of the thing that's going on here in this skeletal, which is something I don't think feels, it doesn't feel, from a design standpoint at least, it doesn't feel good. Whether, and then at the same time, like I said, I don't think we have much data on what the actual skeleton of Peru looked like. We have like fragments, but most of the evidence is, most of the data comes from the skull. So I think there's a bit of interpretation that we can do. Like, of course, I don't want to make it look, it needs to look like a real, real animal still. It shouldn't look like some crazy like fantasy crocodile or something. But I think we have a little bit of room to make things a little bit more bulky. I'm going to work on the lower jaw just a bit so that way we're evening out our progress here. So you can see, this is probably like one of my favorite parts of doing a model is just sculpting the jaw muscles. I just think they're really cool. It's like a really cool bit of like engineering, I suppose, by nature, the way the muscles actually work in the skulls of archosaurs. I really like the way they look. So this muscle, I'm actually not doing it justice. Where is my insert? Here we go. So this muscle has an attachment like right here. I'm actually just going to block it in right now. Because it's a pretty big one. Let's keep groups on, just in case I need to separate it out a little more. So that muscle sits there, and it actually wraps around the jaw, like underneath and around, and it'll come up in here into the skull. And then there's another one here. And this muscle actually will come down. You can see it on the, so this is the inside of the jaw. This is the inside surface. So the top of the skull would be up here, and that muscle inserts down in here on this surface, and it actually goes inside. There's like a cavity, and it goes down into the bone. So it's got even more like mass that you don't see on the outside because it would travel down here a little bit. And I need to get, it's hard to estimate. So the palette of the Peru is pretty wide back here. I want to make sure I'm preserving that. But I think I'm going to have to double check. But he's got these, see those openings here? I'm pretty sure that's where these muscles pop out of. Like they insert into, I mean, they insert up here. And from the inside, you get this kind of like crisscrossing structure. So you have the muscles that are coming down and into the jaw, and then the muscles that are coming from the jaw and up into the skull, which is pretty cool. I have always really liked the way that looks because it makes the animal look so much more powerful, and kind of threatening, especially when they open their mouth. And we always, I know people want to like we shouldn't always show um, dinosaurs and like prehistoric animals as these like big monsters that are just running around roaring all the time, but you have to love a good roaring dino. So we'll refine that a little bit more, but that's essentially that's the shape, something like that. Okay. Sorry, guys. Just looking at chat, make sure I'm not missing any questions. Looks like most of those questions are for Islander. He's got that handled. Okay. I'm gonna get some eyes in here. It's probably gonna make him look really stupid. But I want to see. He's gonna have some googly eyes for the moment. These guys always look like, I don't know, like some sort of Muppet when you just have the skull and the eyeballs in there. Oop, wrong one. I'm going to double check and make sure that my eye sockets are in the right spot. Get this out of here. Let's see. Ooh, not bad. Sorry. It's like, uh, it's almost like if you're like trying to shoot at a target from far away and you actually hit the target, right? That's kind of like what this eyeballing thing was. Like I wasn't sure if I was doing it in exactly the right spot, but it's actually pretty close. I usually, I mean, majority of the time I do not recommend eyeballing. Like if you have a reference, I say, use the reference. But it's fun when it works out sometimes. Ooh, we got 5 minutes, y'all. I was hoping to get some teeth in here, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to that today. I mean, I did get pretty much where I want. I did at least want to get the block out done today, and we mostly have that. So I'm pretty happy with that. Next stream, we'll actually be able to start refining even more. Because I'm looking forward to getting the teeth in, because I think the teeth will really start making the skull feel really nice. Getting the eyelids and stuff in there. It should start developing pretty well. I'm just getting a quick eyelid mesh, just so he doesn't look like Kermit. Too bad. I had a reference of a croc eye. Where the heck did it go? There we go, right here. Yeah. They have a funny face when they don't have their eyelids on. So something like that. I mean, he looks pretty happy now. But we'll make him look nice and tough as we go. Okay, so I don't know why, but there's some asymmetry happening in the skull. It's not good. Actually, I'm going to save it really quick because I'm going to try something to resymmetrize, or whatever they call it in here. Resim the model, so that way it's symmetrical on both sides. But sometimes ZBrush likes to freak out and it'll crash. So wish me luck. Okay, kind of did it. That's good enough. It'll sort of even out as we work on it more. Yeah, starting to wrap up now. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this first stream. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all of your questions. Thanks for coming in and being a part of this development of this this model. I hope we can do a lot more of these streams in the future. And yeah, if you are interested in any of my work, I'd really appreciate it if you gave me a follow or check me out on ArtStation or Twitter or X, sorry, Instagram. I'm on all of those platforms. And I post, trying to post much more regularly. And of course, keep an eye out for the stuff we're doing for Echoes, because it's going to be really cool. Thanks, guys. And we'll see if we can see you next week. See ya. Have a good day or good night. Bye-bye.